All right. First rule of this channel, we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So welcome to the sit start grift for week 14. Hopefully there's a whole bunch of you out there that are still involved in your playoff hunt in some regards. Either you're trying to get your way in the back door or you're trying to fight for those bye weeks in those leagues that have those. I have one league where I could get a bye. It's going to take a little bit of luck. I'm going to have to outscore somebody by like 40 points. And then in my other league, I may end up with the number one seed. So I just kind of want to play it safe there. The other one, I'm swinging for the fences because in that league, coming in third and coming in sixth are the same thing. Coming in second means I'm already playing for money. All right. So moving forward this week, we want to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers. That's what we're looking for. Guys with big upsides because again, some of these guys like playing for the floor or this it's probably not going to be a good idea if you need a lot of points to be able to get into your league, if that's what your tiebreaker is. So these are our slate of games this week. Arizona and Washington are on bye. I am going to talk about the Pittsburgh and New England game a little bit last night. So when we talk about predictability, this is one of the biggest things. Like we want to be able to take the information that we have and use it before it happens, because otherwise we're being reactive, and that's what like chasing the dragon is. Like, I'm going to take the information that I already had. It's already occurred. I'm going to try and make it, try and will it to occur again when there's no way that I can know if, like, say, Jalen Hyatt is going to have another 100-yard week. I could have known that the 100-yard week was happening before it happened, but once it happens, is it sustainable at that point? These are different questions to have. So last night in the Patriots and Steelers game, Bailey Zappi and Mitch Trubisky right now are slated to potentially finish as top 10 quarterbacks, probably going to finish as top 15 quarterbacks. I looked it up. Like if last week with all those bye weeks, they would have finished as quarterback 9 and quarterback 10 based off their performances they had on Thursday night. Again, never trust Thursday night football. Bailey Zappi, those 3 touchdown passes, the third one that went to Hunter Henry, it was either really lucky or really beautiful. I haven't seen him play like that before. Mitch Tribb, a little bit of a turnover machine. He's part of the reason why the Steelers. Gotta pause that real quick. Ezekiel Elliott, this is what I was talking about with him. Volume based RB2 attached to a bad offense. So they get in the red zone 3 times. I would have been surprised if they would have gotten in the red zone at all. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that has been somewhere between like not good and not bad. And he's able to cash one of those in. I was expecting him to be the leading receiver for the Patriots. He did lead them in targets and receptions. He was second on the team in yards. The receiving touchdown is probably going to be non-predictive. Wasn't very efficient in the rushing game, but overall, like this is why volume is king, and you want to be chasing that opportunity first over everything else. For the Steelers, and this is kind of the tale of two teams going into the playoffs. So these are both not good offenses to bad offenses. Overall, if people that were rolling out Najee Harris and Jalen Warren as those low end RB2s, neither of them got home because they don't have the opportunity that a guy like Zeke had with Ramondre out. So combined, Jalen Warren had 5 targets and Najee Harris had 3. And then they were very inefficient in the rushing game, which was predictive based on the fact that the Patriots defense has been stingy all year. And then with neither of them being able to find their way to the end zone, they give you less than a 42-degree day in week 14. Now, the other guy to look at is Deontay Johnson. Those 7 targets, he was able to cash one of those in for a touchdown. And again, this is kind of non-predictive, like when those touchdowns are going to happen with a bad offense. So a guy in my league actually rolled out Zeke and Deontay, and he's battling his way for that 6th seed and rolling these 2 guys out there. One that's a volume based RB2, and the other one that's kind of this like maybe low floor wide receiver 3, and he gets home with both of them. And one of them I was like, that's a bad roll, and then it looks good because he gets a little lucky. The guy that I would have thought would have got home in this game, if there was a guy who I thought was going to get a receiving touchdown, it would have been Muth. Muth 7 targets though. I mean, that's what you're kind of chasing. And then the guy I would have thought number 2 may have gotten home on a long play, George Pickens. This offense is not pushing vertically anymore, but that's kind of the thought process, what we're looking for when it comes to like those upside downside type of guys. So overall weather wise, the Falcons and the Bucks are in a dome. We don't care. Browns Jags have a 34% chance of rain showers. This of course is close to NFL weather. I don't really always follow this stuff, but like it's important to chance it. There's a couple games I will be really worried about the weather. The Texans and the Jets. This game already could be predicted to be ugly because of how the Jets play. And then you throw the weather in there. It's probably not something I want to be playing with. And then the Rams and the Ravens, again, throwing in a variable that I can't control. Slight chance of thunderstorms, 100%. According to this, the precipitation for this game is going to be 100% over the course of the entire matchup. So again, if I'm trying to pick what deeper guys I want to go after, that Rams and Ravens game is already not looking good. And then again, the Jets game, probably only like maybe 2 fantasy relevant guys for the Jets. There may be a few more for the Texans, but again, that the defense and the weather are saying that I should roll out less guys for this. All right, Vegas, and you can see this is like my third or fourth attempt to get this out today. Jaguars and Browns, I could definitely see being a lower scoring game with the Lawrence injury, and then the quarterbacks for the Browns also. Rams, Ravens, 40, and again, that's probably halfway factored in for the weather. I could definitely see the weather making weather and the defense making it a lot harder for the Rams to actually score points. They are, if I go back and I look, they are a 7.5 point underdog in this game. And then you factor in how unpredictable the Ravens offense has been, especially from a fantasy perspective. This is not a game I want to be rolling out anybody that I don't have to in this game. Maybe the running backs are probably the better play. Lions and Bears, I could see this turning into an absolute shootout, 43 implied Vegas points. Panthers and Saints, this is going to be very ugly. At 38 implied points, I could see that being relatively predictive. Bucks and Falcons is another one. I could see this having higher points than expected, but I don't see it turning into a shootout. Neither of these teams play fast. The Falcons are just going to slow the game down, and that means it's going to hurt the Bucks on offense when they get it. Colts and Bengals, this one could be projected out to be a shootout at 44 points. I could go the over on this one. Texans Jets, 33 points. With that weather, I would go the under on this one. Seahawks and 49ers at 46.5 points. This is with the 49ers, I think, being like 13.5 points favorites, or 12.5 point favorites for the 49ers. So again, that means if I'm following the Vegas lines, I want to be rolling out my 49er toys, and I don't want to be rolling out my Seahawks toys, or as many as my Seahawks toys. Vikings and Raiders, I can see this being a really middling type of game, so I don't want to be rolling out extra guys there. Broncos and Chargers, this is going to be very non-predictive. Chargers were supposed to have a good offense. They've been unpredictable. The Broncos look like they were going to have a bad offense. They've been on the not bad side as of late, a little bit more predictable. So I have no idea how this game's going to turn out. Bills and Chiefs project to be a shootout at 48.5. I could definitely see that occurring, although with a turnover machine and unpredictable / inconsistent underachieving offense of the Chiefs could be an under on that game. Eagles and Cowboys at 52 points. With I think the Cowboys are the favorites at 3.5. So in this one, I could definitely see the Cowboys just running away with it from the Eagles, just like what happened to the Eagles last week against the 49ers. Titans and Dolphins, 46.5. This is including the fact that they have the Dolphins at a 13-point favorite. I could definitely see this game being even having more points, because if the Titans get into a negative game script, I could definitely see them uncorking Will Levis in this one to see what they have with the end of the season, as opposed to just doing what they normally do and stick to Derrick Henry. Packers and Giants, this is another one I could see turning in having a higher point total, because the Packers having a good offense and Tommy DeVito being a little bit better at football than we thought. And then if you're wondering, the Patriots and the Steelers was at 30 combined points, and the Steelers were 5-point favorites. All right, so let's get into it. The Buccaneers and the Falcons, Baker Mayfield, this is the heavy emphasis. What I want to talk about today is that upside, the upside for those that are chasing, less so than everybody out there that's trying to, play it a little bit more safe. Remember, the same process that will win me a league will lose me a league. It's fantasy. You got to have to take risk at point. So like if you're playing it safe, I don't know what you're doing. So anyway, this game, I probably wouldn't be rolling out my Baker Mayfield shares, just because, again, these two teams are going to play slow. That means there's going to be less opportunities. And that means that like Baker Mayfield's ability to get the passing volume up, to support him are going to be relatively low. And he just, as much as that he has a little bit of nimbly bimbly that we've been chasing all year, is just to score rushing touchdowns. Part of that's going to be the fact that they're just not good enough as an offense to give him more red zone opportunities a game where he can cash those in rushing touchdowns. Desmond Ridder on the other side absolutely would not play him. He was trending towards being fantasy relevant around week 5, 6, 7. And then, stuff happens. Arthur Smith is a bad coach. But anyway, I wouldn't be rolling him out in a bad matchup overall. He doesn't have the rushing floor. He doesn't have the passing volume. Not a good week for him. Rashad White, RB1, not a lot to talk about. Bijan Robinson is an RB2. But he's a top end RB2. Again, this has to do with the fact that the usage of Bijan, the red zone opportunities is not going to be there. Rashad White is almost the de facto guy that's going to get all the opportunities in the red zone outside of Mike Evans. So I feel a little bit better about Rashad White than Bijan, but I'm chasing that volume. And again, Bijan is a good volume play. The cuff is Tyler Algier. Part of the reason why I don't trust Bijan as much, if you're chasing that type of stuff, is Cordero Patterson, 31% snaps against the Jets last week. So I still think he's going to be there to cut into Bijan. Mike Evans, he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver this year. Absolutely. I think he's matchup independent at this point. Chris Godwin, this is a little sneaky, but squeaky wheel gets the juice sometimes. And his wife / girlfriend, whatever, came out and complained against the Bucs. I still don't think there's going to be enough volume there, and I do think he's going to be unpredictable. I wouldn't be rolling him out, but it's something I got to throw out there. Someone asked a question about Drake London this week versus Nico Collins, how I would shake this out. It's a little bit more complicated of an answer because, like I said, Arthur Smith's a bad coach. It doesn't mean he's stupid. So to give the Jets extra opportunities to win the game by allowing your turnover machine quarterback to turn the football over is probably not a good idea. This week, where they play the Bucs are a better offense, which means they're going to have to actually take a few more shots downfield. He's still their number one. I think there's like I wrote in the comments, there's a better chance that the Texans can win with Nico Collins having a sub 40-degree day than there is for the Falcons to win with Drake London, doing what he did last week, 1 reception on 5 yards. Or for 5 targets. I could definitely see it being closer to that 7 for 51 and 7 targets, 5 reception, 51 yards. And the Tampa Bay secondary is bad. So that's kind of what my thought process would be on that. If you're wondering, I am probably going to be rolling him out because I do think he's got a little safer floor this week than he did last week. Cade Otton, there are worse guys to be rolling out there because of the opportunity just being on the field. But again, after last week, 0 targets, I probably do not think he's safe enough to be rolling out in any format right now. Kyle Pitts, on the other hand, I do think he is going to be a boom bust tight end. So probably gives you the opportunity to go fight against anybody's other tight end in the league. Last week, 66% snaps, 8 targets. And again, a lot of these are vertical targets. So, he is a pretty good dart throw going forward this week. And then the 2 defenses are not the greatest plays against each other. Again, Baker Mayfield can be a little bit of a turnover machine. And Desmond Ridder can be a little bit of a turnover machine. The big problem between these 2 guys is there's probably not going to be enough volume for it to matter. And neither of these teams are going to be playing from a negative script more than likely to force the other one into trying to throw the football where sacks equals turnovers. That's what we're chasing. So again, not bad on paper, probably bad when it comes to, trying to chase the points if you need the points. All right. Lions and the Bears. Jared Goff, probably going to be a rather safe floor quarterback this week if you're into that type of thing. I don't think he's necessarily has the ability to go up there and play with some of the better guys. Guys like Gibbs and Montgomery are going to take away some of his ability to throw touchdowns. But overall, like, he is probably a safe floor attached to good weapons. That's usually what we look for. Justin Fields is a plus play this week. To get it done, he has the rushing floor. That's all we really care about when it comes to those type of things going forward into this game. And then he's sort of been improving as a thrower. So like to get that spike week where it's, maybe 100 yards rushing, a couple touchdowns, and another 2 scoring, he's going to have this tremendous upside. That's kind of what we want to look for when it comes to these things, especially going into the playoffs. I talked about this before in the past. There are going to be guys that are predictive from the concept that we know that there is a week coming. We just don't know when that week's going to occur. And then throwing those guys out there, those are going to be the league winners that we're going to end up talking about at the end of the season, because they're going to win people weeks. So there are going to be guys like a Bailey Zappi that have a spike week that we can't predict. Then that's what we're kind of looking for, is the guys that have spike weeks that we can predict, so we can roll them out. And those are the guys that are going to get people into their playoffs that shouldn't have got in, because you're going to be able to throw a guy out there that in one way, shape, or form we can go, that guy's going to have a 20-point week. When some of the T leagues say like he probably should have been benched. So that's what we're kind of looking for. Again, Gibbs and Montgomery are going to be that RB2 range. They're going to eat into each other, boom bust. Very similar to what we just talked about with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, except these guys are attached to better offense, which means they're going to have better scoring opportunities. I do think that the script in this game is going to be very unpredictable, and that may limit Gibbs and Montgomery going forward into the playoffs, because if you can't really guess how the script is going to be in certain games, it's going to be tough to know which guy to roll out and not roll out. Think of all the chasing that we did with B-Rob, starting to say this is a B-Rob week, this is Antonio Gibson week. At this point, you just got to roll these guys out there and know that like they are going to be volatile, but like you're still rolling them out. I think this is a good week to roll both of them out. Roshan, this gets a little more interesting. I did see on a Twitter post that Khalil Herbert at one point was working with the twos, and Deonta Foreman was working with the ones. And the biggest thing, if you're rolling Roshan out, Roshan's going to have one of the highest overall ceilings if the dice rolls the right way. Because if he can get this 74% snaps, he gets the goal line usage, and he gets the receiving work, he can be that top 10 running back this week. So one of the things that if we're thinking about rolling out Roshan, and I am thinking about rolling him out in at least one of my leagues, I want to make sure that either Herbert or Foreman is inactive. And once they are inactive, that'll give me a better idea that maybe I'm going to get at least 50% of the work going forward. The other thing that's going to be interesting is Foreman being active may mean that he's going to get some of that like change of pace grinder work. Khalil Herbert being active may mean that he's going to get again a different type of usage. I don't think they're going to keep him in to be the pass blocker. They wouldn't leave Deonta Foreman in to be the pass blocker. That's what Roshan's there for. But when it comes to the skill set of Deonta Foreman is going to be this more first and second down grinder, which we're not as interested in that work. That's going back to the game with the New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers. That's this 22 for 68. I don't care too much about that 68 or that 6.8 yards rushing. What I care about, and we talk about this with Kieran Williams, I care about the red zone usage, and I care about this receiving work. So if Roshan can get closer to the 7 for 72 and a touchdown stat line for the Bears, like that's going to give me a better chance to have a spike week than chasing after that 22 for 68 that Deonta Foreman might have. Khalil Herbert, on the other hand, if he's getting that week 12 usage, or excuse me, week 11 usage, where he's at 16 for 35, and then he's getting that passing work on top of that, that makes Roshan almost not rollable at this point. But I'm still chasing that until kickoff on Sunday. Right now, if you're worried about that with the Bears, they have where's it at? It's a 10 a.m. game, so that gives you plenty of time to pivot if the actives and inactives are bad. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think his overall ceiling remains the same. I think his floor is lower because there's so many weapons in this offense that can cannibalize each other. Jameson Williams is probably as good a dart throw as anybody else when it comes to like that 10 to 15 point range. Him getting home with a touchdown catch. Week 6, think like 3 targets, 2 receptions, 53 yards and touchdown. Think of that. Any given week, he can give you that if that's what you're going for. DJ Moore is that low-end wide receiver 1, a little bit of volatility. But again, if he's getting in that 9 to 13 targets a game range, he's going to be a wide receiver 1. Laporta, again, tight end 1, not worried about it. Has a little bit of volatility to him, but he can go out there and he can fight with anybody in the league. Tight end that puts up 24 and a half points any given week can beat anybody else out. And the same thing with Cole Kmet. Probably a little bit safer if you have to choose between a Kmet and Laporta. I think Kmet probably has a slightly safer floor. Defensively, I probably wouldn't be rolling either of these teams out because of the unpredictability of how it's going to roll Lions defense has not been as good. If this turns into an absolute shootout, I don't know how you can necessarily predict this. The Bears have also been volatile, especially behind Justin Fields. And, Jared Goff can be a turnover machine, but again, you're trying to weigh his ability to be a turnover machine versus the toys and how good the offense has been at certain points. Again, I would probably be staying away from both these defenses if I could get away with it. All right, Colts and Bengals. This predicts to be a shootout, or at least has the possibility of being a shootout. So Gardner Minshew is a high-end streamer, and the same thing with Jake Browning. We already saw this last week where he did a 32, 37, 354 and a touchdown. And another rushing touchdown. I don't think the rushing touchdown is something that's predictive, even though against Baltimore, he did do 4 for 40. So there's a possibility of some type of rushing floor with Jake Browning. Again, I talked about this before. I think his floor is probably closer to this 19 to 26, 227, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's probably what you're expecting for his floor. His ceiling, he's already done 26. He could do it again. Colts, not the greatest defense in the world, could be a shootout. So you are swinging for the fences. He could replicate this 26 points. Zach Moss, running back 1 usage, he's a role. Joe Mixon still going to be, especially if Jake Browning can keep this team back on track, this would keep Joe Mixon back in that volume-based RB2 range. Going to be limited from the efficiency. You can see that with his 19 carries for 68 yards, 3.58 carries. But again, if he's the receiving back attached to what would be a good or at least not bad offense, he's going to be able to give you that floor. So this moves him back from just a volume based RB2, something that we were expecting with Zeke, to just being a volume based RB2 attached to a good offense, more scoring opportunities. All right, Chase Brown does kind of predict to be the cuff right now after last week's performance, but it could be Travion White. You cuff who you feel like you're comfortable cuffing going forward. And again, the one thing about Chase Brown, if you're into this with this roster moves going into the playoffs, if there is a usage flop, that we may be looking at that going forward. It would downgrade Mixon anyway, and potentially, depending on how the offense shakes out, it could move Chase Brown into week-to-week viability, depending on how deep your league is. Just something to be aware of. Michael Pittman is functioning as that wide receiver 1, that low-end wide receiver 1 to mid-range wide receiver 1. He's going to be matchup independent at this point. Then we have something to talk about with like Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. So Josh Downs, he's going to be the more safer volume-based floor with the lower air yards. And then Alec Pierce is going to be the lightning in a bottle, less opportunity, higher upside type of guy after, and I've been talking about this all year, 99% snaps, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Is it asking a lot that he does it on back-to-back weeks? Yes. However, that's just not how fantasy functions. He could string this together for 3 weeks, and then you roll him out for the fantasy finals, and then he just doesn't get it done. So, like, again, if you need those points, if you need those, that 40 points to get your bye week, this would be a guy that's on the list. And this is a game where the passing volume may be there because it's a shootout. So, like, he would be a priority type guy that I would be looking at. But, you could also chase the opportunities Josh Downs could get. He could get home volume, breaking one off underneath versus Alec Pierce getting home on a lower probability throw. Jamar Chase, because of Jake Browning, moves back up probably into that mid-range wide receiver 1. I still think there's some volatility to him because of T. Higgins. One of those guys could cannibalize each other, but this does make T. Higgins an absolute smash if you did draft him, as disappointing he's been. And I do bring this up because I don't necessarily think like Tyler Boyd is going to be a guy that you want to roll out in any capacity. He did have 7 targets last week, but again, are you chasing the targets and what could be a higher volume passing game, or are you chasing maybe the more valuable opportunities? That's something that you're going to have to decide this week. All right, Trevor Lawrence, right now he has a questionable tag. The other thing is CJ Beathard's off the injury report. This is something to follow. I don't necessarily know if a healthy Trevor Lawrence upgrades or an unhealthy Trevor Lawrence who plays upgrades the toys versus a healthy CJ Beathard. I don't know on this one, especially in a bad matchup against Cleveland. Would I be putting my fantasy playoffs on the line to roll Trevor Lawrence out this week? Not with guys like Jake Browning and Gardner Minshew out there that I could be rolling. I would probably feel a little bit better in that matchup than this matchup against the Browns with an unhealthy Trevor Lawrence. That's just how I feel. Dorian Thompson-Robinson may play, may not start. That means Joe Flacco may be the starter. Again, this is something you're going to have to monitor for kickoff, because this is going to change the toys for the Browns. Travis Etienne, questionable. So is Dearness Johnson. Maybe a slight chance of a tank week. That's something you're going to have to pay attention to. I don't think right now anything indicates that these guys, Etienne and Johnson, aren't going to play. I haven't read any place that they've elevated anybody. Usually, if they elevate somebody, that means that like they are looking to sit somebody. That doesn't look like it's the case. Jerome Ford's going to be back on the menu as that low end RB2. Kareem Hunt, you are just chasing a guy falling in the end zone. And then Pierre Strong, I talked about this. I do think he's the cuff if you want to cuff last minute. Calvin Ridley, I think he's a boom bust guy, regardless of who the quarterback is. I think he stays more relevant with Trevor Lawrence. I think CJ Beathard will probably be a little bit more check downy. He does have a little gunslinger to him. I remember back with his time with San Francisco, not as much as some of the other guys that are out there, but I would not be chasing Calvin Ridley as much. This would be one of the tough ones that I would be thinking about sitting him based off of the matchup and the quarterback and just overall performance of Calvin Ridley. Probably going to be one of the more disappointing guys on the year. If you haven't heard Christian Kirk, he was placed on IR. This would open the door for, say, Zay Jones. These are outside guys. The guy that I'm a little bit more interested in, and I just can't find a way to get him on my roster or put him in my lineup based off of the teams that I have. But I would be really interested in Parker Washington. I did watch the tape. I did watch him play. Again, we're kind of hoping that the 6 for 61 can be, something that could be predictive. The touchdown won't be, but again, that 6 for 61 is something, a floor to be working with. And again, the way that the offense kind of uses Christian Kirk is more of a vertical slot than this dink and dunk type of guy. So I could see Parker Washington sticking right into that spot going forward. Right now, Amari Cooper is questionable. And again, with Joe Flacco, DTR, and then the wide receivers, these are things that you're going to have to check before kickoff. If it's Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper's out, this opens the door for Elijah Moore. And you can see right here that I'm not the only one that saw this, 255 air yards. This would probably be one of the priority predictive plays if you get Joe Flacco, if Amari Cooper's out, if Elijah Moore plays. That's what you're going for. I do think that regardless of who the quarterback is, and I think that regardless of if Amari Cooper plays, Cedric Tillman is going to be like Alec Pierce. We're chasing that opportunity. The snap share's there. The opportunity's been there. Now we're just waiting for it to land. I would probably put money that he does it by the end of the season. He may win somebody a week if you're chasing that upside. Evan Ingram, I talked about this before. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You're going to roll him out. And depending on what your matchups are, again, if we're trying to be predictive about these things, Joe Flacco did not necessarily use Njoku the same way that DTR did. He would be another guy that if I had to go upside hunting, I might think about benching a Njoku. But again, these opportunities are still going to be there. He is the de facto number 2 in this offense. So again, we're just trying to look at all the variables and try and make our best guess. But again, that's how I would see it rolling out in this game. And again, if the Jaguars are limited because either Trevor Lawrence or CJ Beathard is the quarterback, that means that game script can go back to the Browns just trying to lean on the Jaguars, and the Jaguars might do the same thing. So it just turns into this uglier game where both of them are playing a game of chicken to see when the other one's going to screw up and turn the game over to the other one. All right, this week, I would not be rolling out Bryce Young. I shouldn't have to say that. Derek Carr is looking like he's going to play this week with the concussion. I think this actually downgrades everybody in everybody in New Orleans with the exception of Alvin Kamara. Chuba Hubbard is going to be that volume-based RB2 attached to a bad offense. So again, like Zeke, I would be rolling him out. 65 snaps, 25 for 104, and 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns are probably not going to be overwhelmingly predictive on a week-to-week basis, but the opportunities there, that's the biggest thing to chase. Opportunity is king. If I'm cuffing, it's Miles Sanders. Alvin Kamara is going to be a sub-elite tight end, or a sub-elite running back 1 at this point. If it's Derek Carr, I think that this targets opportunities is going to stay rather consistent in the passing game. So that's something to be chasing going forward. If it's Jameis Winston, I don't necessarily think it downgrades Alvin Kamara too much, other than the fact that Jameis Winston can be more volatile. So that means either more turnovers, less scoring, or those scoring opportunities go someplace else. But overall, it doesn't matter. Derek Carr, I think, is going to be the quarterback this week. That's what it looks like at this point. Jamal Williams, if you're cuffing Kendre Miller, again, I think he hasn't even practiced this week from what I think I saw last, so I don't think he's relevant at this point. Jonathan Mingo, he's probably a safer floor play than he is going to be upside. So be advised with that. With does have the snap share, does have the 10 targets. He was able to cash that in 6 for 69. But again, I don't know how much he's going to have the ability to do what DK Metcalf did last week, or going forward. So again, kind of keep your expectations that he's probably going to be closer to this 10 for 6 for 69, with maybe a 1 out of 4 chance that he scores a touchdown. Hasn't scored a touchdown yet, but there are worse plays if you need that floor going out there. Adam Thielen wouldn't be starting. I think teams are just taking this away, and they're trying to force the Panthers to push the ball vertically or run it. Chris Olave, he is expected to play. I did see he missed with an illness. I'm not worried about that. Shaheed is questionable, hasn't practiced this week. I wouldn't be rolling him out. So one of the better dart throws at one point in the season, I don't think is viable. Again, A.T. Perry is the other guy. Like the snap share was there. The opportunity is going down. I don't think there's a good play for him. Juwan Johnson, I don't think is a thing that I would be chasing. And then Taysom Hill, you're probably going to have to wait for a game time decision to roll out. He may be the most valuable piece in fantasy if he's healthy, especially with Derek Carr. So I would be rolling him out if he's available and you own him. All right. Jets and Texans, CJ Stroud. I think this is a weird conversation to be having about riding a guy who got you there. Again, this is a matchup. If you're matchup shopping, you should follow what the variables tell you. The variables say if you needed an upside with CJ Stroud, you should probably go someplace else. Based the Jets, the Jets. And again, the Jets are going to play it slow. They're going to play probably conservatively, limited scoring opportunities. At best, think last week when we looked at the Redskins and Miami, and even though we knew Miami was going to blow the doors off the Redskins, Tua did it for a half and then he shut down. So if you're chasing that like 30-point week, I just don't think it's going to be there this week. All right, had to take a sip of green tea. All right, moving on to Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's going to get the start. Again, I don't think he is fantasy viable, especially in a week with all this upside. I don't think he has had fantasy relevant weeks. This is probably not the week that anybody should be trusting Zach Wilson. Overall, I probably would not be rolling out the Texans pieces in this game. There is a possibility that you could maybe guess that Devin Singletary will have the better opportunity to do something like this 7 for 6 for 60 or for 54 that he had in week 12, based off of the targets. Vacated targets need to go someplace. But what I'm kind of looking at with the Texans this week is I could definitely see this goes back to some of that 50-50 snap share split between the two of them. And again, this is against the Jets. It's going to be slower. Probably going to be less opportunities to score, so I probably wouldn't be into that. Breece Hall is questionable with an ankle. I would not be rolling Dalvin Cook out even against the even for the opportunity. And again, the reason why is I could definitely see if Breece Hall is out in this game, that they do see what they have in Israel Abanikanda. Nico Collins, I would be rolling out there. I did have a comment this week about Nico and Drake London. And again, the problem that I have with a guy like Drake London, if I had to put my money where my mouth is, I think he has this ridiculous upside. You can see that after a 29-point week. The other thing is the Jets could just take him away and force those vacated targets from Tank Dell and Nico Collins to go someplace else. So there is going to be a volatility in this. We have the ability to go back and see that there has been other weeks where when teams have decided they don't want Nico Collins to win the game, they'll go someplace else. It would not surprise me if this is the week that the Jets do that. So again, there's some volatility in this. If I'm swinging for the fences, I'm rolling Nico. If I need a safer floor, that he may not be the guy that I want to be going after for that 40-degree day. Right now, Noah Brown is listed as questionable, even though he hasn't practiced all this week. So now we're chasing vacated targets, and we're looking at like the difference between like a Robert Woods, who I think is going to be a very safe guy, probably going to have a floor that's under a 40-degree day with maybe the outside chance of catching a touchdown pass. If there's a guy that I would be chasing if I really needed upside based off of everything but the matchup, those vacated targets, I would definitely think that this would be a week where John Mechie gets probably up to that 60% range, and he could be in that like Parker Washington 6 for 6 for 61. I do think that would be within his range of outcomes if you're chasing that. Garrett Wilson probably back to that low end RB2 range with Zach Wilson. I think everybody knows that the football is going to go to either Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall if Breece Hall is active. So again, you're chasing the opportunity first, and if he can get home, he can get home like he did week 12 against Miami with that touchdown. Other than that, like you're looking for this higher volume. Week 10, 14 for 9 for 93. Week 8, 13 for 7 for 100. And then trying to find the best situation where the Houston defense is probably one of the better ones that they've faced in a little bit of time at this point. So that kind of bothers me. Again, chasing opportunity. Dalton Schultz is ruled out. So that means that Brevin Jordan, again, chasing those opportunities from a tight end position, probably does have the ability to do 75% snaps again, 5 for 3 for 64. And again, when you're chasing that much opportunity, there is a possibility for a touchdown, which would put him in the range of a top 5 tight end if you can get that attached to this offense. You could draw the story out to go back. You could draw the story out where the Jets take away Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan has that spike week. You can definitely see that story coming down the line. Matt Stafford, the Rams versus Baltimore. Remember, this is supposed to be an ugly weather game. One of the weather games. So remember, and the other thing with the Texans Jets game is it's supposed to have bad weather. Rams Ravens are also supposed to have bad weather rolling out there. Let's see. So Matt Stafford probably would be a sit this week. Too many variables to really even consider him, even though I would generally say if there wasn't the weather, I would maybe say that I would still roll him out with the upside with the toys against a bad matchup. Baltimore defense with the weather wouldn't be necessarily doing that. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. Believe it or not, the weather is going to make me say he's already been very volatile as a fantasy play. Then you throw the weather in there. So on Sunday night, if I see that Lamar Jackson underperforms, I'm going to be like, that doesn't surprise me. That's just something to be aware of. Kieran Williams, I do think is a play, even though it's a bad matchup. Again, we're chasing that opportunity. He's got like the perfect opportunity when it comes to a running back. He's going to get receiving work. He's going to get red zone work. He is still a role, even though I think the weather and the matchup may downgrade him from a high end running back one to probably like a low end running back one. Not that big of a difference. If I was chasing someone in this matchup, it would be Keaton Mitchell. I think he's got the upside versus Gus Bus. They are a little bit different. You're really chasing the red zone carries that Gus Bus can turn into touchdowns versus that gravy that Keaton Mitchell's going to get. There is a little bit more volatility to this because we don't know what's going to happen coming out of the bye. But again, overall upside, probably still Keaton Mitchell. Gus Edwards is still going to be in that boom bust type of range. Right now, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, again, I would be saying these guys are trending towards sitting if you can get away with it based off the weather. I know you're probably not going to be able to do that for 2 reasons. They got you there, and why would you kick yourself the next day saying, why did I sit these guys? But they are both trending towards being sits. I'm playing my Puka Nacua shares as my wide receiver 2. If you're chasing him as your wide receiver 1, that's a little dicier. Zay Flowers in this game, I think, again, it's a down because of the weather. If I'm chasing someone based off of upside, not weather related, it would be this 80% snaps of this trending upward trajectory of Rashad Bateman. But again, remember the weather in this one. Tyler Higbee is doubtful this week, so that would put a few more targets in the direction of Kieran Williams than Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And then Isaiah Likely this week, I do think is a role in general situations. Again, remember the weather, but he is a tight end. He is probably the number 2 option in this attack on a regular week. So yeah, if you're chasing him, and again, because he's the number 2 option, I could definitely see him having just about a better opportunity to score a touchdown than a lot of these other tight ends that are touchdown dependent. All right, Vikings and Raiders. I kind of think this is going to be an ugly game. if you're rolling your Josh Dobbs shares out there, remember he probably has the best range of outcomes to finish as the top quarterback in all of football, fantasy football at the end of the week. He also has the best range of outcomes to finish as the worst out of all starting quarterbacks this week. So that volatility is going to be there if you're chasing that upside and that downside. Aiden O'Connell, I don't think that he has the ceiling to be rolled out in this game to be fantasy viable, but he keeps the toys on track. Alexander Madison, I do think he's going to be that volume base too this week. Tyler Chandler is probably not fantasy relevant, but he is a stash, seeing how things shake out coming out of the bye. Josh Jacobs, again, volume based RB1. Zamir White is the cuff. I think if you're into that thing, Justin Jefferson is going to be back. I think you should keep your expectations muted. We don't know what it's going to look like with him and Josh Dobbs. So I think he's more of a wide receiver 2 this week. Jordan Addison, he's going to be a boom bust wide receiver 3. That's just how he's kind of run outside of that limited opportunity he had when Justin Jefferson was out. Devontae Adams is probably better viewed as a high-end wide receiver 2 because of the limited passing volume that the Raiders are probably going to have. This is probably going to be an uglier game between these two teams going forward. I kind of think that this takes Jacoby Myers off the menu because I just don't know if you can bank on him either giving you this 91% snaps, 2 for 2 for 21, or this 91% snaps, 7 for 6 for 79, a touchdown. I have no idea which way it could go. Very boom bust when it comes to that going forward. And then TJ Hawkinson, obviously, going to be a top tier sub elite type tight end. Geno Smith and the Seahawks against Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Geno Smith may actually miss this game. That means Drew Lock may be the starting quarterback, something to be paying attention to. Brock Purdy is a solid wide receiver or quarterback 1. This is a good matchup for him. I would be rolling him out. I think that you are leaning more towards his ceiling than his floor this game. Kenneth Walker is in line to practice or play full practice. Same thing. Zach Charbonnet is looking like he's going to play. It says looking good. I don't know what that means. Christian McCaffrey, unicorn. If you're cuffing, Elijah Mitchell may not be the guy to cuff. Looks like he's not going to play. So maybe if you're cuffing, who knows what's going to happen next week if CMC goes down? Maybe a Jordan Mitchell week to be cuffing. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just giving you the news and the notes. DK Metcalf, I think he's a role. I think he's very volatile, even in this matchup, but he's got one of the higher upsides. Again, he just did it last week. Tyler Lockett, again, he's going to have this massive upside. He does it every year. Jackson Smith-Njigba is probably the safe play if you can do this. He is trending in that 67% snaps, 11 targets. I could see that being something that's predictive going forward. So yeah, if you're chasing the safest guy out of these guys this week, it would probably be JSN. Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, they're all plays. They're all boom bust. I've talked about it before. I'm rolling them all out there, knowing what they can give me this week. I'm probably not going to get cute because they are some of the best in the business when it comes to what they do. All right, Josh Allen and the Patrick Mahomes in this game. Josh Allen, absolutely rolling him out. Patrick Mahomes, this matchup, I will talk about this later in the season where we may have to talk about benching Patrick Mahomes a few times in the fantasy playoffs. This week, the Buffalo Bills defense has not been good. Even though the Chiefs offense has been inconsistent, it is a Patrick Mahomes week. Stephon Diggs, I definitely see, he could get home. We're just not going to overthink it. This probably is a Gabe Davis week if you need upside. If you don't need upside and you're going to be safe, I would be sitting Gabe Davis. Definitely. Same thing with Khalil Shakur. Rashee Rice, I think this is a great week to be playing Rashee Rice. We'll get into this a little bit more when I talk about the running backs at the end. Dalton Kincaid, there is no news right now on if Dawson Knox will be activated. And that would be the main thing about whether or not I would be playing Dalton Kincaid. If Dawson Knox is activated, because we don't know how that usage is going to work out between the two of those guys, especially coming out of the bye week that the Bills just had, I would not be taking the volatility of Dalton Kincaid at all. If Dawson Knox is out, I think that Dalton Kincaid is going to be a relatively good wide or tight end 1. Travis Kelsey, he's still a roll. We don't have to overthink this. And then the only running back for the Bills that I would be rolling out would be James Cook. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't think the Leonard Fournette signing, the Uncle Lenny signing, is anything more than insurance against Latavius Murray. I think that James Cook is going to be the guy that I would be riding into playoffs, and feeling a lot better about after the firing of the OC. I think this will be relatively consistent with him. They will try and get him the football when he's on the field. So I do like him better down the line. I don't think he is going to be as volatile as he was. You can see these last few games when he's on the field, they're getting him the football, and especially in the passing game, that's really where the only thing I care about. All right, so here's the big news. Isaiah Pacheco is ruled out for week 14, and when asked if they would IR him, they said that we'll see. That's coach speak for they're not going to tell us one way or another. But I would be prepared for Isaiah Pacheco to miss significant time if I'm the Isaiah Pacheco owner. So remember, if he gets IR'd this week, he is done from a fantasy perspective. He can't come back. He can come back for the regular season, but unless you're in a week 18 championship, he's done if they IR him. So I went and picked up CEH in both my leagues where he was available because of the fact that, like, if he's IR'd, I can't take the chance that a volume-based guy could hit someone else's lineup in the playoffs. Now, I bring this up because that's CEH. I've talked about this for a while. I don't necessarily think CEH is going to get the fantasy relevant work, which is receiving work and goal line carries. I don't think he's necessarily going to get that. But I don't think Jerick McKinnon is going to get that either. And this is the big news out of all of this, is the guy that I think benefits the most out of the Isaiah Pacheco injury is actually Rashee Rice. Because when we've seen in the past, when Jerick McKinnon is has been able to win leagues at the end of the year, he does it from receiving work in the red zone. Well, that's already what Rashee Rice has been doing this year. So I don't see that necessarily changing. It just means those vacated targets, or those vacated carries in the red zone are likely to go someplace. And if it's going to go any place other than who we already think it's going to go to, it's going to be Rashee Rice. So I wouldn't necessarily be chasing Jerick McKinnon as this touchdown machine that he's been in this past, this very high efficiency red zone guy for the Chiefs. I still think that the opportunity is going to go to Clyde. They've been running the football in more with Isaiah Pacheco this season than we kind of seen in the past. I could see the actual red zone carries are going to go to Clyde, and then their actual red zone receiving work will go to Rashee Rice, because what's left is going to go to Travis Kelsey, if that makes any sense. The other news in all this that makes it a little bit more interesting is Dendrick Prince, the rookie that's been on the practice squad, camp hype guy. This would be the guy that I could kind of expect that may end up eating into either Clyde going forward. That he's more, he does remind me a lot of Isaiah Pacheco in their skill sets. So I could definitely see that he'll be active and he may eat into Clyde going forward. So again, I picked up Clyde to block. I still probably wouldn't be rolling him out, even though there's a pretty good chance that he's going to be able to go out and get the 60% opportunities with about 15 carries and a handful of catches. The other thing to take into account with this, and this is some of the bigger news, is that Pacheco was being integrated a little bit more into the receiving work, but that was before we had this uptick in Rashee Rice's overall usage. So again, I could definitely see that those checkdowns, those vacated targets, have already been eaten up by Rashee Rice. So I think the biggest beneficiary of all this is Rashee Rice. That's the long story short, and we can move on. All right, Russell Wilson against the Chargers. Broncos have looked better. I think Russ is a low-end streamer primarily because of this rushing floor. Justin Herbert, this is another guy. I would probably be sitting Justin Herbert if I could get away with it. Probably rest of season, maybe the Buffalo game, I could roll him out. I don't think you or I or anybody has any idea what he's going to do. And if you're expecting him to give you a floor or a ceiling at this point, I don't think that there's any good way to predict that. Especially, like I said, we have this game between the Colts and the Bengals that does predict to be a shootout. There are other games that do predict to have higher implied point totals, that there may be guys available to be rolling out in their weeks. So again, if I'm chasing other guys, and again, Will Levis is something I want to talk about later. Will Levis would be a guy that I would be actually chasing if I needed points over Justin Herbert. Just saying. So moving on from that, Javonte Williams, I think, is a high-end RB2 this week against the Chargers. Chargers are bad. P. Ryan is the handcuff, but there's maybe a little bit of questionability of whether or not he's going to play. So Austin Eckler, I am not going to tell you to bench a guy who's getting opportunity, but coach speak, they are talking about Josh Kelly getting the touches. So when you put Austin Eckler into your lineup this week and he gives you another poor showing, all the writing is on the wall that he's going to have a bad week this week. It's a slower game against a team that is doing better. They know that Austin Eckler is theoretically the focal point that they could take away, and he hasn't looked as good physically. Someone else is going to take away the opportunities. You tell me if he's going to finish as a top 10 running back or outside the top 30. All right. Courtland Sutton, don't care how the sausage is made. He's rolling out. I'm not going to overthink this. Keenan Allen, don't care how the sausage is made. I'm going to roll him out volume-based wide receiver 1. This is another interesting thing going forward when it comes to Quentin Johnston, those vacated targets. So Josh Palmer will not be activated for week 14. So you are going to get those opportunities. And again, we're chasing opportunity first. So New England, 77% snaps, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 52 yards. Could see this happening again. So this would be something that if I'm chasing something in deeper leagues, the T leagues are saying this is going in a particular direction. I don't think he's a good. I don't think that he's a good prospect. But when we're looking at Jonathan Mingo versus Quentin Johnston, Bryce Young versus Justin Herbert, even though I think that there's something wrong with San Diego, they need to go a different direction from a coaching standpoint. I know which guy I would feel better about as the number 2 versus Bryce Young and his theoretical number 1, Jonathan Mingo. All right. Gerald Everett is going to be back on the table as a tight end 1 after last week, but be advised, like, this may be a problem with the offense. Donald Parham was at 62% snaps. Gerald Everett was at 64% snaps. That 5 for 4 for 44. And again, you see that Donald Parham 4 for 2 for 12. Again, your guess is as good as mine. I think there are better tight ends to be chasing. We'll get to some of them here in a second. All right. Philadelphia and Dallas. Jalen Hurts, he's elite. Dak, he's pretty much elite at this point. DeAndre Swift, you're chasing the opportunity at this point. We've talked about this before. I don't think he's got a lot of opportunity to score touchdowns. I don't know how predictive the usage in the passing game is going to be. He did have 6 targets last week. That was in a negative game script. I don't think there's any other running backs to be chasing. I've already talked about Rashad Penny theoretically being the cuff. But yeah, like, this is a guy that, like, in this game, you're chasing the opportunity more so than you're chasing any type of efficiency. Tony Pollard in this game, volume-based, RB1 attached to a good offense, he should have a lot of opportunities to score. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, I'm not overthinking this. They could cannibalize each other, but again, I'm not overthinking it. CJ Lamb or CD Lamb, high-end quarter or running or high-end wide receiver 1. I'm not overthinking it. Brandon Cooks, in that wide receiver 3, desperation wide receiver 2 role, I think he's fine. I think he's got enough upside. I do think he's got enough floor. I think he's a good play overall on a week-to-week basis. Dallas Goedert is cleared to place. Dallas, if you are in a hard place and he's available on your waivers and you need to make sure that you have the biggest ceiling possible rolling him out, that this would be the guy. I think you could roll him out against a lot of the other tight ends and have just as high a floor as everybody else. But I would not necessarily be rolling him out if I'm the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith owner, because I think they're going to cannibalize each other. So just be aware of that. Jake Ferguson, I think he's a top 10, top 5 tight end. I'm not overthinking it. And what does appear to be, I'm rolling out all these toys because I could definitely see this turning into another shootout between the Cowboys and whoever else they're playing. So I would be rolling out as many of these guys as I could, but these are probably about the only guys I would be really comfortable rolling out. Again, I talked about this. I teased this a little bit with the Titans and the Dolphins. So we saw this last week with the Miami, that they were able to jump out on the Redskins. Tua was able to do 18 to 24 for 280 and 2 touchdowns primarily in the first half. So I could definitely see this as a week where Will Levis is going to have to be opened up. So we don't have to care how the sausage is made. He may have a lot of there may be a lot of passing volume involved in this game. So I could definitely see as a desperation high upside play, it is a Will Levis week against the Dolphins, expecting that the Dolphins are gonna really ramp the game up against the Titans. And again, if we can start guessing that's going to be a negative game script, there's more opportunities to push the ball down the field. Going to be very volatile, but at this point, like if I'm just shooting for upside, that would be something I'd be interested in going forward. All right, Derrick Henry, volume based RB2, yeah, whatever, you're rolling him out. Tajay Spears probably not going to roll him out. I would not be anticipating this massive negative game script where I can try and catch this receiving work. Again, that's just probably too much for me to try and guess at, but he is the cuff going forward, and it does look like Derrick Henry is going to play. Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane. I would be chasing Devin Achane almost 100% because of the efficiency. You're probably not benching Raheem Mostert, but this would be the guy that I would maybe expect to disappoint this week with this game. So, you should be a little bit wary of that if it comes to the ability to be benching running backs. I know there haven't been a lot that have been available out there, but this would be a game that I could definitely see that he reverts back. Achane's going to be moved more and more into the offense. You see that they are trying to rest the 31-year-old. Be advised that like Jeff Wilson, if he's active, could be the guy that gets a majority of the work in garbage time. So like if they do this 50-50 split, he doesn't get home and then they want someone to burn the clock out, it may not be him this week. Just to be aware of how I think the game flow might work out. DeAndre Hopkins, I'll always going to chase my volume-based guys. Don't overthink it. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, again, Tyreek Hill, volume-based. Jalen Warren has been Waddle has been disappointing this year, but I'm still going to chase the opportunity attached to good offense. He is the number 2 attached to good offense. And then Chig, there's another one of these guys that has this massive upside in a game that I could definitely see having to where the Titans have to trail. And this is a good game to really see what they have in Will Levis by just opening it up and letting them throw it all over the schoolyard. All right. Giants and Packers. This is another game I think is a sneaky game to have a higher implied points because Packers have looked good as of late. I'm rolling out my Jordan Love shares. I don't need to know how the sausage is made. He's got a lot of toys. I think he can continue to get home. If this is the identity of the team, I talked this really early in the season where they're just letting him throw touchdown passes. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Tommy DeVito, I would not be rolling out, but this is good news for trying to get some of the Giants pieces to work. Aaron Jones is limited. AJ Dillon is limited. I didn't see anybody being elevated. So again, that makes me think these guys are going to be playing this week. Saquon Barkley, I do think is a pretty good play this week against the Green Bay, partially because if Tommy DeVito can just be good enough, it allows Saquon to be in that volume-based RB2 range. And there's always a chance that he can get home. Just like we saw with Zeke this week. Christian Watson is out from what I saw. He doesn't expect to play. This probably pushes Romeo Doubs up a little bit into that wide receiver 2 threshold. I do think that Jaden Reed becomes more of a priority play in that wide receiver 3 range. You're really trying to guess which one of these guys gets home. The most likely situation is Don Donovan Wicks takes on a large amount of the vacated targets by Christian Watson being out. They get spread around between Doubs, Reed, and Wicks. The big winner out of all this is Tucker Kraft because, again, he 95% snaps, 6 targets last week. I could definitely see him being in that 95% snaps, 8 targets. And again, he's a tight end, so he could definitely vulture a touchdown at any given point. I did talk about this with Tommy DeVito. This is the big reason why I think Tommy DeVito allows some of these guys to be fantasy viable when we're chasing deep. Jalen Hyatt right here. We are kind of hoping that he can replicate the 60% snaps, maybe keep that a little bit higher so we can get into that 8 target range. 5 receptions, 109 yards last week. So this would be a priority guy that I would be chasing in a matchup that does not necessarily look to be bad. And this is a script where the Giants might have to be throwing. And again, if I'm chasing just pure opportunity, Daniel Bellinger is there with that 90% snaps coming out of the bye with Darren Waller still not looking to be active this week. All right. So I think that's it for everybody. I don't have a lot else to talk about, I think, today. So again, if I'm looking at just pure dart throws that are available, like Jalen Hyatt is a guy that I would be interested in. Trying to look at these guys. Jalen Hyatt, I like CEH from a volume based standpoint. I think Rashee Rice is an upgrade because of this. Jake Browning, Gardner Minshew are really good streamers, 1 week rentals, and what would be a good matchup. Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, I think have high upsides if you're chasing the upside purely. Uh, Elijah Moore, if and again, this is all the ifs. If Joe Flacco's the quarterback, if Amari Cooper's out, Elijah Moore is a play. I still think that Cedric Tillman, the rookie, if I can hunt him down, he has upside. I think Parker Washington's a good upside play if you're trying to chase those points. Remember, this is all chasing those points. Taysom Hill's a good play if he's healthy. He's one of the better plays going forward. Let's see. Brevin Jordan's going to have a high upside with vacated targets from Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. See, the Rams and Baltimore game is going to be ugly from a weather standpoint, just like the Texans and the Jets. Don't particularly like anybody in this game. Nothing special in this game. So we would be stashing CEH, and I do expect Rice to be an upgrade overall. Trying to check Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, the status of that. I'm expecting that Austin Eckler is going to get phased out a little bit more of the offense for the Chargers. Let's see. I think Will Levis is a sneaky upside play, especially like 2 quarterback leagues. I think you could do worse than that going forward. Chig is an upside play at tight end. Daniel Bellinger is an upside play. Tucker Croft is an upside play. Jalen Hyatt probably has one of the higher ceilings this week if we're chasing the trajectory of things. And then Donovan Wicks if you're in really deep leagues going forward. And that's about it. So yeah, got to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers, and I'll see you guys on how the sausage is made.